what is social and emotional development? When we're newborn infants, our social abilities and our abilities to deal with our feelings are a long way from what we expect from adults. Somehow, we get from this state of infancy to the social and emotional world of adulthood, and how we get from A to B is what we call development. The real question we are faced with, however, is what ingredients allow or promote this development to happen. This brings us to the issue of nature and nurture. By nature, we are talking about our genes, our genetic heritage that provides both the possibilities and the limits for our development. Our genes, which we inherit from our parents in the form of DNA, are necessary for us to have the possibility of developing any characteristic. Carrots develop from carrot DNA, and no matter how much a carrot may wish otherwise, it can't develop into an apple, into a fish, or into a human being. Human beings don't share a lot of genes in common with carrots, but we do share a lot of our genes with chimpanzees, and indeed about 98.5% of our genes are the same as we find in chimpanzees. That 1.5% difference in genes, however, produces quite a big difference in development. A chimpanzee and a human being are pretty different. So our genes are profoundly important for our development. And when it comes to social and emotional development, we can see the dramatic degree of similarity amongst human beings. In terms of social development, for example, virtually all human beings develop the ability to interact with other human beings using language. Language usually comes very easily to us, and most of us learn it simply by listening to our caregivers. Similarly, if we look at emotional development, virtually all human beings are capable of experiencing joy, sadness, anger, fear, embarrassment, feeling hurt, excitement, love. Even more, we can usually understand why another person is displaying a particular emotion, because we human beings are so similar that we realize that we would be feeling similarly if we were in their shoes. So it is our genes that are largely responsible for the tremendous amount of similarity that we see in emotional and social development across human beings. The main emphasis of this talk, however, is about the differences between us in social and emotional development. Because in spite of the vast amount of similarity, differences in social and emotional development matter to us a lot. Some people are very sensitive to the needs of others, treat others with kindness and respect. Some people are quite indifferent to the needs of others and treat others with a callous disregard. Some of us are relatively happy. Some of us are perpetually depressed or distressed. Some of us are quite outgoing socially, being inclined to engage with others when we have a chance. Others of us are quite shy and retiring. We feel uncomfortable in social situations and often prefer to be alone. It's these differences that are usually the biggest concern for parents. Most of us would prefer that our children develop being relatively happy and content, that they're not prone to persistent anxiety and distress, that they feel good about themselves, that they relate to others comfortably, easily, and with pleasure, and that they're sensitive and responsive to the feelings and needs of others. So when it comes to these aspects of social and emotional development, what do they depend on? This, of course, is a profoundly important question for parents and indeed for all of society. If these differences in social and emotional development are in fact dependent on differences in our genes, then the things that we might try to do to affect them are going to be very different than if these differences depend more on differences in our environments. Although some researchers in the field of behavioral genetics interpret their data as indicating that these kinds of differences in social and emotional development are largely due to differences in our genes, the collected scientific research overwhelmingly shows that these differences among us are primarily due to differences in our environments, particularly the environments that we experienced when we were very young. Where this leaves us is with the tremendous opportunity and the tremendous responsibility to provide children with the environments that are most likely to support the kinds of emotional and social development that we say we want. If we actually want our children to be relatively happy, relatively free of anxiety, and to relate to each other easily and with sensitivity and consideration for others' feelings, then the research provides some very clear direction on how we can make this happen.